auto desk equals reinterpret cast struct description resolve expression, and that should be here. Expression no, resolved inferred type. Reported. We already reported an error, which is why this is null. So we just bail, return. Okay, so okay, we can't use a switch here because the types of what this is are not okay. So we have to go if style. So if inferred type struct desk. So that's right. So and desk dot scope. Else if enum desk. You know what? Too much typing. Okay, so if it's an enum, I'm assigning this variable because we're probably going to want to do more with this later. Yeah. Okay. So we then continue through the loop. There's no default. It's an else. Okay, so let's just assert current scope. I don't think that should be an internal compiler error. Now, here's what I'm not sure about. After doing all this thinking and all this boilerplate and all this stuff, this compiler is complicated enough that I honestly do not know what the right thing is to do to import declarations from one scope into another. Therefore, I think it might be, well, I think it might be okay just to do it, just to jam them into another array. Except no, because you need the new things to flow through. Oh God. So if I'm attaching to a declaration, it means that declaration has flowed through the dependency system. I need a new declaration to flow through the dependency system to trigger any dependencies. Is that true? Maybe that's not true, because it's identifier resolution. Let me look for a second at how I do identifier resolution. I'm just even looking for just the right piece of code right now. Oh, that must happen here. Okay, so here's where we resolve identifiers. Okay, we just find the declaration straight up. So This maybe should actually work. It's slow. What we're doing there is slow, but again, like I said, I haven't had compiler speed problems yet because we research the entire scope every time. Because we research the entire scope every time, I can drop things into the scope and not worry about tagging them in any way. Although I may regret this later when I optimize that. All right. So, like I said, I had to add this thing that was my enclosing scope. So, for current scope members, my enclosing scope. Okay, we want to so normally I would use this checked add to scope thing that I was looking at before. Checked add to scope, where we check to see if we redeclared. But this function does some other funky things that I may not want to do. I definitely don't need. Yeah, this is all written. So I want to say bool redeclared, whoops, equals check for redeclaration interp scope. Factor that out. I'm not going to make it a method because it's a small function. Check for redeclaration. Whoops, why am I retyping that? Okay. I don't need that. So if we find something, we return true. Otherwise, we return false. So if I'm not going to import anything without an identifier, yeah. Think about in what cases this could actually happen. Can it at all? Oh yeah, if there is a using there. Remember, our using returned like a declaration with a null identifier, so we don't, yeah, I don't know. So if check for redec, well, I'll just do this. I'll put it in a variable, my enclosing scope. If redeclared return, because there's no sense in spamming out more errors or something. Otherwise, my enclosing scope members.add it. I hope that's sufficient. If it is not, I'm going to bed anyway because I'm flying to New York very early in the morning on Thursday and I don't want to get my sleep cycle way too whacked. All right, so I haven't yet set this my enclosing scope thing, which should be easy. Asked new, asked using. All right. So when we new this, we say my enclosing scope equals, I think it's called current asked block. Yeah. That's just a thing that the parser maintains about like what scope that we're in. Okay. Oh, asked using, not asked enum. I hope somebody caught that. I just haven't been watching the chat. No, the for thing is a macro that I have that does, so C++ now has a range-based for. but I wrap that around it just so I don't have to declare the variable. I just call it, which I have an equivalent feature in my language. Whoops. It's like check for redeclaration of what? Of what? You have to tell me what. Or I don't know what to do. Oh God, right. Okay, so I'm trying to use this from the other file, so I'm going to have to paste a forward declaration in there, which is another way that I have great contempt for C++ and don't try to keep clean. Apply using it as well. For some definition of clean, this is actually sort of the cleanest way to do it because you don't pollute your header files. You say, look, I'm declaring this right here because I'm using it right here. That's a weird one. Oh God, operator precedent. I don't know how that code worked. See, that's a reason I should clean up my errors so that I spot stuff like that faster. Or clean up my warnings. It's just a lot of times warnings are dumb. I just can't. Current scope. Left a dot scope must have. That's another thing that never happens in my language because dot and arrow are the same. My enclosing scope is a member of. I'm going to do this in email. I just can't stand the Visual Studio Editor. Right? It's a member of asked using. Check for declaration. Does not take 2 arguments. Still, it's. All right, let's see what happens. I have no idea now what's going to happen. Small percentage chance it'll just work. Nope. Crash. Oh, because it's still. So here's the thing: is it's still trying to generate code for this guy. It's still. So we're doing all this work. I mean, maybe we're crashing in this work, but even if we don't crash in this work, we're still passing him later in the pipeline. So so what am I going to do? Remember, I can substitute in something here for the expression. So I don't know what the bytecode handler emitter is going to do if I just put 0 on a line by itself, like if it'll. I'll just try putting void and I'll see if it complains about that. So forget this. I'm going to substitute for expression. But we don't want a type definition. We want a literal. What have we got handy? Literal true. I could put true or false. I don't know. We'll see what the bytecode builder. It should just throw that out, but it might generate some nuisance instructions for that. Oh, are literals not a subclass of expression? What? No, that can't be true. It is an expression, so I don't know. Oh, right, sorry. It's not star expression. It's expression pointer. Star expression pointer equals that. Okay. Probably still crash. Probably still crash. Yep. I don't know why Visual Studio is taking so long to crash. All right. So let's see what it says. Same place. Same place. What is the declaration? It's a literal. Oh, it's still got no identifier. So it doesn't matter. Right, it doesn't matter if we, if we swap it out. So let's get rid of it here. So if we have it, I'm going to get rid of that hacky substitution I just did. And I said if it expression type if it's got an expression and it's using, then that generates no code. So just don't do anything. All right. Hey! That's kind of good news. The reason it's good news is we got to the C conversion phase. It doesn't know what a using is, which it shouldn't because we haven't put that in yet. Now what I don't know is why... Oh. I took out my run. Let's try running the bytecode for this. Okay. So it's got alpha, beta, gamma. The test is, does it have delta? This is the moment of excitement when all the work pays off, and probably it doesn't have delta. But let's see. Let's see if it can do delta. Please, please, please. Okay. So like I said, we're only doing one level using now, but to do handle using foo.hello to do handle using hello.delta. So both of those cases need to be handled, but currently they are not. So now we just need to make the C compiler understand. So what was the error? And it doesn't really need to do anything because, oh wait, it does. Oh boy. See, this is where if I generated C from bytecode, I would be done and I would be able to walk away. But I generate C separately because I want the C to be higher level and more readable. The more I run into problems like this, I may give up on that philosophy. So the problem is that the way I handle using has to be completely different for C code. Like, I have to output some stuff, and I don't even know. Anyone have any opinions on what the cleanest way is to do this? Because it basically just involves rewriting some crap, like doing a pound define of each symbol to be whatever the ending namespace symbol is, which is gross. It's gross. And the thing is, no, you know what? I'm just going to go to bed before I think about this, and I might just throw away the current C converter and do it from bytecode, because the problem is, now that I've got a namespace here, this isn't going to be namespaced in C. So I've got to namespace my identifiers by tacking a string on front. And then I've got to denamespace them by untacking the string. And that's going to be gross no matter what. It's kind of straightforward, but I'm more in the mood to go to bed than I am to do that. So I'm kind of happy with this just working in bytecode tonight, because bytecode is the one that's actually important, because that is the thing that'll be compiled. So that's the real work. The C converter is more like side work that lets me generate fast code right now. So I'm going to sleep on this. I'm going to think about how I want to do this in C, and whether I should do the disgusting thing, or whether I should just throw out the entire C converter and convert from bytecode. But I'm happy because it wasn't clear to me how I was going to implement using, and it works. And it works to one level, and it'll be relatively trivial to extend it to multiple levels. And I might even do that before I do the C conversion. So commit-m using works in bytecode needs to be adapted for C. Only works for namespaces for importing whole namespaces one level deep, but this can be straightforwardly extended. That'll be my next step, is to take care of those caveats, all of which should be relatively easy. The C part is annoying, but the one level deep and the namespaces only is just a couple more if statements in that code that we wrote there. Do I find streaming helps motivate me? It's kind of fun to just sit here and program while people are watching me. I do program a lot worse. I program a lot more slowly, partially because it takes a long time to explain. Like when I think things, I just go bam, 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 and do them. But when I explain what I'm doing, it takes a long time. I always stream late at night because I've got a day job, and so then I'm tired. And it's not the best to do this stuff when you're tired. But it's interesting. Like, I like this experience, and I like the solo drop into concentration experience, right? They're both valuable. Oh, the other thing about this is, if I start programming and things are harder than they should be, if I'm just by myself, I just power through it and nail it. Whereas you get this kind of like performance anxiety when it's like, oh my God, everyone's watching me screw up here, right? Or it's never really a screw up, because programming is hard and just has pitfalls and whatever. But when you become more self-conscious of them because people are watching you do it, it actually can make you get confused and be less responsive. So it's harder. It is harder to do this than it is to straight up program by a substantial margin, but it's fun, so I like to do it. I would never ever switch to this as the majority of my programming time, because oh my God. In that code, take away the brackets. What code? There's a lot of code. Let me see. I don't have a clock. Let me run clock for a minute. I forget the options. No 3 and per file. So this is a thing that counts the lines of code by file. So clock, no 3, in bin. Oh, I just looked this up. What was it? Dash dash by file. CP start at H. All right, so I've been trying to keep the code relatively economical. I did a couple of refactorings where I try to keep it down, but we're inching closer to 11,000 lines of code. I'm gonna keep trying to keep it small, because the bigger your code gets, the crazier it gets. Is the start of this project, you mean the start of the whole compiler? No, I did it in private for a long time. Any last questions before I go home and go to bed, happy with sort of having figured using out? Yeah, there's some videos on YouTube um, where I talk about the philosophical underpinnings of this language, like why I'm doing it the way that I am, etc. Am I going to Everyone asks about self-hosting a compiler. Yes, it'll be self-hosted eventually, because I would much rather program in this language than C++. But the language is evolving rather dramatically, and I don't see a point. Like, it's just an ego thing to rewrite your compiler in the compiler, sort of, like, because it's cool. I'd much rather make sure people can write very big, complicated games that are actually much harder to make than compilers, I think. So that's my target, is making sure you can build games. So the thing that I build in it will be a game. In fact, the thing that you've seen, not this little test, but the Space Invaders thing or the Galaga thing is an early cut of a game, and that'll get more and more sophisticated, and maybe I'll do other projects that are more and more sophisticated. But I'd rather do other kinds of applications than a compiler initially. Eventually, in the long term, we're going to want to redo the compiler, absolutely. $11,000 is not that big. You know what? Let me run clock on the witness. Bin clock dash dash no 3. How do I do recursive? By file, by lang, witness source. Oh, it must be looking in the subversion. I don't know what the hell. Why is there 9,000 files? That should not. Oh, because that includes. Oh God, that includes all our libraries and stuff that we import. So, witness, source. It includes all this stuff. So I'm gonna go to submodules specifically. So witness source game, witness source game lib core, witness source game lib render, witness scripts. That's probably most of it. So this witness source sup is where it was getting all that stuff. We've got like tons of library dependencies in here and stuff. Don't want that. All right, let's see what this says. I still don't know why there's that many. Oh God. Okay, so we're at about 280,000 lines for the witness. Although I'm a little scared about why it thinks there are that many files. These all look legit. Maybe there are that many files. 600? That seems reasonable. So the witness is 280,000 lines. roughly. I mean, unless there's something weird getting caught in here. And I'm not the only programmer. Uh, there's sort of, I'm sort of only about a third or a half of a programmer these days because I do a lot of design and stuff. But so there's like 3.5 programmers. mprintf is just printf that allocates memory. I think there's probably a C standard library version of that by now, but I just have that laying around forever, so I just use that. Yeah, so when people say like, "Oh my God, a compiler is hard and a game is not hard," actually no. Like that compiler right now is 11,000 lines and the witness is 280,000. So you imagine even if the compiler gets complicated when you generate code, um, it's not going to become this big, I don't think. And this is an indie game, right? Like AAA games are in the millions of lines of code range. Hey, you got to have blank lines, man. Got to have blank lines. 15 Perl files. Bourne shell, Python, batch file. Yep. That's pretty big. So I gave a talk in 2011 at my old school where I demoed the witness. Wow, that's a long time ago. I think it was 2011. It might have been 2012. I think it was 2011. And back then the witness was 140,000 lines. So it's doubled in size between then and now. Yeah, 20% header files. Imagine if you didn't have to have header files. The code size would go from 279 to 233, which is substantial. And then just all the annoyance of cross-maintaining them and stuff, and all the build time, and yuck. Yuck. All right, I'm going to bed. What was my education? I learned to program when I was a kid. I had a cool basic programming class in the 6th grade, and I really liked it. And then I got a computer at home, and I learned to program there. And then by the time I got to high school, I already kind of knew how to program, but I took a Pascal class in high school. And then when I got to college, I took official computer science things. And then I dropped out of college after a few years without getting a degree. And then I started a game company with a friend. So thank you, everybody. I am out of here. I said this before and it turned out not to be true, but I probably won't do another live coding session for over a week because I'll be gone. Thank you for watching the stream. It's very gratifying. Like I always, I never know if anyone can tell what the hell is going on when I sit here and do stuff, but I guess people kind of can because there's 200 people watching the stream and there's an exciting space landing happening right now. And usually when I do these streams, at least 200 people show up, so that's really gratifying. So I'll keep doing them. I'm glad that we got some actual functionality implemented this time. That's always good. And it looks to me like I can't pay too much attention to the chat, but it looks to me like you guys have good discussions between each other asynchronously while this is going, so that's nice too. So I'm glad that I went to college because the kind of programming that I knew before I went to college was kind of hacky and informal, and in college I sort of learned real computer science. And that was good. It was very educational, and I'm glad I did it. But at the same time, school was kind of depressing, and I've never been the kind of person who does well in school. I've always been the kind of person who does well on my own projects. So I should have dropped out earlier, I think, but it all worked out. It all worked out. All right, I'm going to upload this one to YouTube as well. Good night, everybody. See you some other time.